Hey, good afternoon. My name is Allison McKenzie, and I'm the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board for 26, 2011, last amended on March 9th, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review in the back of the room and online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, should please stand now and take an oath administered by the board's attorney.
So everyone who would like to provide any testimony here today that's not an attorney, if you could just raise your right hand and answer out loud. Swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
I just noticed there are probably a lot more people who stood up than signed in on this sheet. So if anyone needs to sign in on this sheet, maybe we can get them. Is there a second one back there? So if you didn't sign in, so please make sure that you do that. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio rules of evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, before you begin your comments, please state your name and address for the record. With that said, let's proceed with the first item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 1 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 1541 Elm Street in the Over the Rhine neighborhood. This is an existing vacant former industrial building that has been vacant for many decades. The applicant is proposing to repurpose the building for use as an eating and drinking establishment. The changes to the exterior are primarily limited to rehab of the existing building. There are some alterations for window and door openings, and there will be a large outdoor area installed on the south side, which is currently vacant land. So as far as the zoning relief that's needed, that is related to the outdoor area that's proposed. It does exceed 50% of the size of the indoor area accessible to the public, which requires conditional use approval. And then they're also proposing outdoor entertainment within that area, and that requires an additional conditional use approval. So you can see on the screen, this is the condition of the building as it exists today, and this is the proposed rendering with the alterations in place. They are proposing to keep the large roof sign and reface that with the name of the new business. The Elm Street Tap Room is subject to change based on the owner's future name of the restaurant. Windows will be replaced, and there are some alterations to the existing door openings on the primary facade. So the large double entry doors will be replaced because they are in very deteriorated condition, but this will still serve as the main entry. It will replicate the glass transom above and the existing pattern of openings in that doorway. This window is, or this door on the edge is going to be fixed in place, so it won't be an operable door, but it will still have the appearance of being a door. And that same is true for the door on the smaller building that's connected on the south. This will be a fixed in place door, not operable. And then finally, the other change is with the location of the other entry door on this main portion of the building. The current door is in this bay. They are proposing to shift it to this bay and replace that with a window opening. And this door entry will be infilled with a new window as well. On the secondary facades, this is the current elevation facing Liberty Street. It was rebuilt several years ago due to a deteriorated condition. They did keep the existing pattern of window openings. There are not many because this currently fronts Liberty. When Liberty Street was widened back in the 60s, there were other buildings next to it, so this was an interior wall. It has more visibility now due to those demolitions. This is the proposal. They do plan to add additional window openings, fill in the basement windows with the brick being recessed from that wall plane so that location of those windows is still visible. And then they are proposing a mechanical screen here for some HVAC equipment. That screen will have brick fronting Liberty and metal louvers on the ends as well as on top to allow that air infiltration that's needed for the equipment. You can see a better view of that here with the solid brick wall and the louvers. They're also adding a door opening here. And then on the rear elevation, these openings are existing, some are infilled, some are not. The applicant is proposing to keep the placement of those openings, but they would be infilled and then have a wood material that replicates the loading door in these two bays and shutters on the window openings. So these will be infilled, but have that material placed on the exterior to still read as historic openings. So the largest changes are happening on the vacant portion of the lot. This is where the outdoor area is proposed to be located. You can see on the image, there's some pretty rough condition for the existing decks. These were likely rebuilt at some point in the past, but are deteriorated again. You can see the corrugated metal lining that roof line. So the applicant is proposing to replace these decks in the same general configuration with new pressure treated wood, as well as a fiber cement panel system on the roof line. The smaller building on the side, there is one window opening that exists on this elevation that is proposed to be infilled at this location. The rest of that wall will be stuccoed, reparged as it is currently. And then it is proposed for that stucco to wrap around the edge to cover the back portion of that building, which is in pretty poor condition. Staff does recommend that that condition of that wall be assessed prior to applying that stucco to ensure that that brick actually does need the protection before that is applied. Other than that, the outdoor area is generally an open area. This structure at the street is the trash enclosure. It is screened with appropriate materials. And then the wall running along the side essentially provides the boundary for that area, as well as the ADA accessibility ramp that goes up to the patios. The front portion of that outdoor area will remain a grassy area and have additional landscaping planted, and a black metal fence will surround that. Staff finds that for the zoning relief, in general, staff does feel that this is appropriate. It is within 100 feet of a residential district. However, just across the street, it is an open surface parking lot. There are residential uses further to the south, but staff does not feel that the size of the outdoor area or the inclusion of outdoor entertainment would be significantly detrimental to the nearby residential zoning district. So with that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions: approve conditional use approval for an outdoor area within 100 feet of a residential district boundary exceeding 50% of the size of the interior area accessible to the public. Approve the conditional use for outdoor entertainment within 500 feet of a residential district boundary. And staff also recommends approval of the application for a certificate of appropriateness for the property at 1531 Elm Street, with the conditions that: 1, the low stone wall proposed for the ramp and outdoor area at the rear of the building shall be stone or a CMU product that mimics the appearance of stone. The west elevation shall only be parged if evidence of previous parging is found, or if the brick is found to be deteriorated and in need of protection as determined by staff. The rear wood deck shall be painted or stained after construction, and the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date, or the COA shall expire.
Okay. I don't have anyone signed up on this sheet for this item. Do we have an owner or applicant that would like to come and speak?
I apologize, I signed up
Sure.
back there.
I think she's bringing it to me now, but please just introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Rob Hubison with ATA Architects, 1063 Central Avenue.
And who else do you have with you?
I'm Patrick Gillis with Sugar Creek, who's representing the owner for this building.
Great. And were you both sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add to the staff's report?
I don't think so. Doug did a good job of describing what we're planning on doing, and we are very, we're agreeable to all the conditions, which are pretty minor, so.
Great. Are there any questions or comments from the board for the applicants or staff? Did we have anyone signed up? We have any members of the public that wanted to speak on this? Okay, just want to make sure because not everyone put an item number. If there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second. I will call the roll. Mr. Zelasco.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Looks good.
We can move on to item number 2, Mr. Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 2 is the continuance of an application that was previously before the Historic Conservation Board at the October 7th hearing. This is an application for zoning relief and a certificate of appropriateness for 1887 Madison Road. This is the application for the accessory structures to the rear of the property that are related to the gardening and storage that was requested for this property. As a reminder, the locational variances, the zoning relief that's required is a locational variance for 2 accessory structures in the side yard. And also includes a dimensional variance of 637 square feet for a cumulative size of accessory structures of 1,437 square feet. And finally, a numerical variance of 2 for a total of 4 accessory structures. Also, a certificate of appropriateness is required. And as a reminder, this is related to the greenhouse on the property as well as a small storage shed that is behind the building. So in the previous proposal, the board had concerns with the proposed materials that were to be included on the shed. It was not a wood siding material. It had vinyl windows and a metal roof. So I think the main change from this application from the previous is the applicant has agreed to reface the building with a wood board and batten siding that will mimic the appearance of the siding on the artist studio that is adjacent. They also have gone back to propose wood windows instead of the vinyl that were installed previously. And they're also adding a stone border at the bottom of the shed where the foundation would be. So in addition to the changes of the materials, the applicant has also installed additional landscaping in the form of arborvitaes along the property line to help further screen that. There's also additional plantings directly behind the shed. So these plantings should help with the sightlines from the neighboring property. As I mentioned previously, there's very little visibility from any of the surrounding streets. The applicant did include an image of another building in this district that has the gambrel roof to help to justify the gambrel roof on the shed. He did investigate placing a simple gabled roof rather than the gambrel roof on the shed. However, in order to do that, the lines of the gable would end up eliminating much of the loft storage area that's currently at the top portion of this shed. So he would like to keep the gambrel shaped roof. The other accessory structure, there are no changes from the previous application. That is the geodesic dome that is used for gardening on the property. So staff does feel that the changes that were made from the previous submission are substantial and do improve the design of the building as well as further screening it from view from the neighboring properties. And as such, staff feels that these are appropriate changes that do move the application forward. From the time of the original submission to now, we did receive 6 letters of support in total and the 1 letter of opposition that was presented at the previous hearing. So with that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions based on plans submitted with this application. Approve the locational variances for the placement of 2 accessory structures in the side yard. Approve the dimensional variance of 637 square feet for a cumulative size of 1,437 square feet. Approve a numerical variance of 2 for a total of 4 accessory structures. And finally, approve a certificate of appropriateness for 1887 Madison Road, including any revisions submitted for permit subject to staff review.
Thank you. I think we do have an applicant, Ms. Ruley. Would you like to come forward? Is there anything you would like to add to the staff report?
The only thing I would like to add is, in addition to the things that Doug mentioned, we also did end up moving the structure closer to the back of the house so that it doesn't stick out as far in the view of the neighbors that have the issue with it. So it's about 8 feet closer to the house than what that picture shows. And you really can't see it too well on that overhead picture, but it sits in between 2 retaining walls. So the closer it is to the house, the more it's within the coverage of those 2 retaining walls. So hopefully the changes that we've proposed will satisfy the board and enable us to continue our agricultural use of the property, which, as you can see from the letter of support from the descendants from the Baker family, keeps the property within the historical nature of not only just the outbuilding, but the intent and purpose of it as being John Baker's country estate built in 1854.
Are there any questions from the board for either staff or the applicant before we get public comment?
We received 4 more yes affirmatives and no more negatives.
Correct. We had 2 letters of support at the first hearing. We received 4 additional letters after it was continued, and we did not receive any additional letters of opposition beyond the 1 that we had already gotten.
I have a question for Mr. Owen. For the locational variance, does that include the adjustments that the applicant made as well?
Yeah, that would still cover that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we do have a couple members of the public signed up. Mr. Kreider?
Thank you. Kenneth P. Kreider of KMK Law, representing neighboring owner on Keys Crescent. We appreciate the landscaping, moving the structure closer to the house. Those are mitigating improvements. The building changes are marginal. I would suggest that while they are responsive to the architecture of the existing structure, the shed and the geodesic dome still read as temporary structures, not historic. And so on that basis, a C of A should not be granted. However, maybe more importantly, there really isn't a showing of any precedent to have 4 accessory structures in the side, 1 in the front, 1 in the rear yard, technically 3 in the side yard. The property already had 2 decent sized accessory structures on it when the property owners bought the property. There's no showing of a hardship here. So they'd have to rely on the standard that these temporary structures are in the interest of historic conservation. And there's been no credible showing that the variances, all the variances that are needed for these 2 additional structures are in the interest of historic conservation. So on that basis, the neighbor's objection stands. Thank you.
We do also have one other person signed up, I believe, for this case. It looks like maybe Trace Curry.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, thank you. I don't believe I have anyone else signed up then. Are there any additional questions or comments from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the zoning relief and the EOA for 1887 Madison Road is laid out by staff.
Second.
Roll, Mr. Zalasko.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes no, but the item still passes, so good luck. Okay, item number 3.
Madam Chair, item 3 is an application for certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for the property at 5 through 11 West McMicken Avenue in the Over the Rhine Historic District. This is an application for a new surface parking lot on an existing vacant lot. The parking lot does require conditional use approval as a standalone parking facility in this district. And the alterations to the vacant land require the certificate of appropriateness. So this is an existing vacant lot that is on a block that is otherwise relatively built out. It's currently just vacant land. It has an 8-foot high chain link fence along the frontage to prevent trespassing and illegal dumping on the lot, which has been a problem in the past. The applicant is proposing the conversion of this building to a parking lot. It is intended to be public parking with 16 spaces that would help support Findlay Market, the Over the Rhine Tenement Museum, and other businesses and residences in the area. There's a relatively small parking lot, and the applicant has provided all of the required landscaping and buffer areas. That includes the 5-foot landscape buffer along West McMicken Avenue with 3 tree plantings, one at least every 25 feet, and a black metal fence on the inside of that landscape bed. And then in addition, he does have the 3-foot buffer on the interior lines. There is a wood privacy fence that runs along the rear of the property that is furthest away from the street and will not have strong sight to do that. So staff finds the landscaping and the design of the lot to be appropriate. The applicant has also provided scored concrete entry drive to help break up that appearance of the large amount of paving, as that will be the most visible portion of pavement from the street. So again, as I typically mention when we have surface parking lots in historic districts, they're not obviously the use that we would most like to see in a historic district. However, they do serve a useful purpose by providing that parking for adjacent businesses, and surface parking lots are relatively easy to be redeveloped for building sites in the future when the demand for that land warrants it. So with that being said, staff does recommend the board take the following actions based on plans by Newbar Design Group dated 12/11/2024. Approve the conditional use approval for the parking facility and approve the certificate of appropriateness for 5 through 11 West McMicken Avenue with the condition that the building permits be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. If you're an applicant or owner, if you'd like to come forward. You could identify yourself, please, and then add whatever you would like to the staff report.
My name is Jared Gershon, Vice President of Property Management with Model Group at 1826 Ray Street.
Joe Bodkin, Dubar Design Group, 129 Mary Lane, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45217. I think Doug covered everything very well, what we're trying to accomplish here.
One of our biggest objections with people moving to Over the Rhine is parking. That would not only kill that bird, but also kill two birds with one stone by providing additional transient access for Findlay Market and local businesses, like you said.
Are there any questions or comments for the applicant or staff?
I have a question. Are these spaces going to be metered in any way? Or is this just an open free for parking?
No, it would be a cost for parking, I believe, yeah.
Okay. And how would that be enforced? Meters or is there going to be a
With a pay station.
custodian?
Yeah, pay station.
The pay station?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question for Mr. Owen. Is this in the parking overlay district?
Yes.
We do have one member of the public, I believe, signed up, Mr. Pulte. Give us your name and add what you would like to this case.
All right, yeah, thank you. My name is Brendan Pulte. I live at 359 Ludlow Avenue. I'm broadly against the expansion of surface parking in the neighborhood, but I do have particular concerns with the excavation of and the construction of this parking lot, in that there is the potential that there are significant archaeological effects at this site. So there was a wooden structure which served as a church at one point, and then it served as also a workshop, and then I think a church again, that was demolished in 2005. That's the only structure that was on this site historically, but Sanborn fire insurance maps, if you go back and you look at them, they show that there were at least 3 privies outdoors towards the back of the site here. And so if you don't know, they were not only used for human refuse, but people kind of just threw things away there. So like glass bottles, combs, buttons, things like that. But there are things that can be learned about the history of Over the Rhine, especially about the African-American community over the Rhine. One of the uses was an African-American church at one point, I believe. And so if this is to be approved, and to the extent that the board can do this, I hope that it can be approved conditionally where the applicant can wait and provide time for excavation to be done to find these effects and have them preserved. So thank you.
Any questions?
Actually, I do. This is the first, this has come up, the archaeology.
Yeah, I believe it's the first time I've heard it.
So, and I did have a question for the gentleman that was there. The lot's pretty flat. Didn't look like there's gonna be a lot of groundwork.
So I believe so.
Maybe destroy the.
From my understanding is that for drainage and for other site work, there would have to be a slight excavation, if I'm not mistaken.
Why so late in the game on this?
Yeah, I was not aware of this before, so that's on me. But I just wanted to make that known and heard. So. Thank you.
I can address the excavation. We're not taking any soil off the site. It is pretty flat, so I don't think we're going very deep at all. And towards the rear, you can see we're not really touching at that corner at all.
How's the drainage proposed to be handled? Are you gonna have trench drains or?
There would be, you can see it right by like 16 spaces. There's a drain that'll go out and tie into the original sewer.
That one catch basin drain is gonna?
Yes, sir.
Don't know that we have any purview as a historic board to put conditions on that. Anything I should be aware of, Mr. Sturkey?
I think you're right. I don't believe that the board has the authority to enforce the proposed condition from the speaker. Of course, you impose conditions on almost every application, but they need to be within a certain scope, I think. That would need to be resolved privately between the speaker and his organization and model group if they wanted to try to accommodate any archaeological surveying.
Anything else from the board? I don't think anyone else has signed up for this case, just double checking.
Do you folks have comments on the claim there's possible artifacts?
I mean, I've done a lot of work in OTR, and we have found prunings.
Sure.
They're pretty deep. And most of the time, and I think there were 2 or 3 structures on here over the course of the decades. They're probably infilled right now. And to me, it's a time capsule. And, you know, if development ever comes here, then I think it would be something that you'd look into.
I don't personally view the parking lot as destructive to the site. It may not be what's wanted in the area, but, okay, I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
This would be used for OTR museum as well? Is that the intent?
Yeah, public parking, paid for parking.
Be for model residents as well?
The general public, yeah, it could be our residents, but they would have to pay.
Residents get like a pass at the space, or is it just public 100%?
100% public.
If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Glasgow?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins? Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair also votes aye. I'm sure that model group will be a good steward, and if you find anything that seems to be worth looking into further, I suspect that you'll take that.
I did have a question actually for you. Can the model group tap into the app that the city uses for parking, or how are you guys
That's a great question that I'll bring to
transitioning to that?
my boss. I don't know the details of that, and I apologize. I've only been with the model group for a short time here, but I will follow up with that.
It's fine.
I think that's a great idea. I'd love to be able to tap into the resource. I think that's an excellent statement.
Thank you. Item number 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 1112 Walnut Street, also known as 100 East Central Parkway. This is the location of the future location of the Cincinnati Children's Theater, which is being installed in the existing Emory Theater within this building. So it's currently being renovated for this use. This was before the board once before for the installation of a canopy on the exterior of the main entry. This is what was approved by the board previously, the metal canopy at the location of the previous canopy to the theater entrance. So the applicant, now that the canopy has been approved, is coming in for the rest of the sign package related to that marquee sign. So there are several different signs that are proposed for this building. On this image, this is the location of that canopy. The marquee will go here with 2 wall signs below that advertising the shows of the theater. There's also a projecting sign on the corner of the building at Central Parkway and Walnut, both for the Emory Apartments as well as for the Children's Theater. And then on the Clay Street elevation, the 2 of the loading dock doors one of these loading dock doors has been or will be infilled, and the applicant is proposing signage related to that entry as well. The other garage door will remain, and there will be a mural, an artistic wall mural painted on the door. So see on the map, most of the signage is clustered around that marquee. This is the signage on the rear Clay Street, and then on the corner for the projecting sign. So going through the projecting sign first, this is the applicant's preferred option. It does exceed the height in the conservation guidelines as well as the placement above the second story windowsills. But staff does feel that these are appropriate signs. They will be externally illuminated. While the Emery sign is taller than 3.5 feet, its overall square footage is actually below what would be allowed with a 3.5 by 3.5 foot sign. So staff feels that while it is somewhat taller, because the square footage is lower and the nature of this very tall building lends itself to the taller sign, so staff feels that is appropriate. The Children's Theater sign does comply with the size. As I mentioned, both these signs are above the second story windowsill, which is what the guidelines state that they should not exceed. However, in this case, again, because the building is such a tall building on a very busy street, the additional height will give better visibility for patrons who are wayfinding for the theater and the apartments. It also raises these above the street trees that are on this corner to allow that additional visibility as well. The marquee above the canopy is, this is what is proposed. So this is a metal crown. It is 3-dimensional, so it will be a round structure. It is proposed to rotate slowly. It won't complete one rotation more than once every 6 seconds, which is the zoning code requirement. And it will have the Emery Theater routed letters on the metal. So the sign will sit above the canopy that was previously approved at this location here. And as I mentioned, it will rotate slowly there. So staff does feel that this sign, while somewhat unusual and somewhat different than we typically see in historic districts, staff does find that it substantially meets the guidelines. The guidelines do state that signs should capitalize on the special character of the building and reflect on the nature of the business. So staff finds that the sort of whimsical nature of the crown and the rotation does reflect the nature of the business as a children's theater. It does not substantially block any significant views of the building. While it is in front of the 4 arched windows here, it does still allow views through those windows. So staff does not feel that is a substantial site issue that deteriorate or that reflects on the historic nature and condition of the building. So staff does feel that this substantially meets the guidelines and is appropriate. The signs below the canopy include the identification sign above the doors, which essentially is an exempt sign from zoning because it is smaller than 6 square feet and it identifies the entrance location to the building. And you can see the street level wall signs on either side that will advertise the plays that are being shown on premises. Integrated within the canopy above, the applicant is also proposing a projection sign. There will be a small projector built into the canopy that will project light onto the sidewalk in front that will read the Children's Theater of Cincinnati. So the signage itself, because it's integrated into the marquee, is considered part of the marquee, meeting the zoning code. So the certificate of appropriateness is what is required for that projector. And then on the Clay Street side, this is the location of the loading dock that is going to be infilled, and this is the signage that is proposed above that. It is LED neon lighting, and it will read stage. This is intended to only be illuminated when there is a show occurring at the theater, so it won't be on every night. It will only be during show times. So neon is approvable on a case-by-case basis. So it does need approval from the board. We consider the faux LED neon to be the same as traditional neon. So that does require the board's approval, but staff does find that it's appropriate. It's also recessed within this opening, so it's not going to create a lot of light spill or other problems up or down the street. And then you can see the mural, excuse me, on the existing overhead door that is next to that. So that will be an artistic wall mural that won't be commercial messaging, and staff does find that appropriate as well. So with that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions based on plans by GBBN dated 1/16/2025. Approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed sign package as well as the artistic wall mural at 1112 Walnut Street, including any revisions submitted for permit subject to staff review and approval, with the conditions that 1, the rotating crown may not complete more than 1 revolution every 6 seconds. 2, exterior light fixtures should be minimal, contemporary, and unobtrusive and shall be approved by staff prior to the issuance of building permits. And 3, the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. It looks like we do have Mr. Zembrot. Sorry if I mangled that.
That's great.
If you would like to add anything to the staff report?
I think Doug has done a great job at explaining all that we're proposing. The only thing I'd like to add is the crown, we think, is a whimsical way that is visible from multiple corners, a way people will approach the building rather than having traditional lettering that faces one directional to the street. And then the LED lighting will be used, that's the stage entrance, so all the actors will be using that street, and we thought that was a good cue for them as they approach the building for the performances.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant or staff?
Is the crown gonna be illuminated internally or
Externally illuminated.
so light projecting onto the crown from Happy then
Yeah.
into the windows of the behind it or
It'll probably be embedded on the roof, like kind of underneath the lip of what you see in metal there. So it'll be somewhat hidden from the street level.
Additional questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to,
Hang on one second, like just make sure no one else has signed up for this, because I've got some people without cases. Anyone else signed up for this case? Okay, great. Now, Mr. Zalesko.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 112 Walnut Street, per comments provided by staff in the report.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Zalesko?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins? Aye. Mr. Young?
I
The chair also votes aye. This did look like a lot of signage when I was reviewing everything, but then I remembered just how massive this building is.
Cool. Looks very good.
Okay. On to item number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5 is an application for certificate of appropriateness as well as zoning relief for the property at 449 West McMicken Avenue in the Mohawk Bellevue Historic District. Property is also located in a hillside overlay district, and it does require zoning relief through a hillside review for exceeding the maximum building envelope in the rear setback as well as the rear height, and a hillside review for cumulative excavation and fill totaling 15.75 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit. So this is currently primarily a vacant lot, especially along the West McMicken Avenue frontage. There is a surface parking lot at the rear of the property that's accessed off Central Parkway. And the proposal that is going through the Planning Commission for a subdivision would be to split the West McMicken portion of this lot off from the Central Parkway portion to create a building site proposed for these attached row houses. There would be a property line down the middle as well. So each of these row houses would be on its own separate parcel. This is a view of the lot from West McMicken. Currently, you can see it's a vacant lot, chain link fence, and a steep slope on the other side of the sidewalk leading down to Central Parkway. Again, another aerial view showing that slope down to the surface parking lot below. Excuse me. So the applicant does require the hillside review for the rear setback. This condition is based on the proposed lot split, and it is primarily required due to the size of the lot on the left here, which is essentially a through lot going from West McMicken to Central Parkway. So the building does have a larger setback on this end than the other lots that do not carry all the way through. But in general, the proposed rear siding of the building is consistent with the development along this street where other buildings have similar rear setbacks or overall building depths. So staff finds that to be appropriate. Again, with the hillside review, there is at the rear, because of the slope of the building, the maximum height at the rear is exceeding that 35-foot limit. But this is primarily due to that change in grade. The building does step the foundation in to the hillside, and the roof does slope downwards with the hill until that back section where it does kind of pop back up to allow access to the rear decks that are proposed for the building. So staff finds that this is substantially appropriate for the district and for the hillside regulations, primarily because the massing of this building, again, like the rear setback, is substantially similar to the rest of the development on this site. So staff does not have any major concerns with the hillside review. So as far as the certificate of appropriateness discussion, so this is a rendering of the proposed building. You can see that it is generally about 3 stories in height. One of those stories is behind the mansard roof. Excuse me, which is consistent with the guidelines. You can see on either side of the building, you have 3-story, 3.5-story buildings. So it is within generally 1 story of the adjacent buildings. This will be split down the center, so this will be 2 separate properties with the center being attached. The applicant is proposing vehicular entry for garage access on the primary entry. We have not seen much new infill development on West McMicken. Generally staff is a little hesitant about vehicular entries on primary facades. However, the applicant has been working with staff from the initial proposal to try to help better integrate these access points into the design of the building so they are not quite as obvious as vehicular entries. So staff feels that with the changes that they've made to the design to get to the point where this rendering is today, staff is generally comfortable with these proposed openings. This is, it will have a black metal gate at the wall plane to sort of continue that solid surface along the building. The actual garage doors will be recessed within that entry. They will be substantially recessed. I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but they will not be something that is highly noticeable when you're walking down the street facade. And the applicant has added the sort of an homage to the old breezeway entries that were on the edges of the buildings to allow pedestrian access back into the side entry door. So staff feels that these openings, along with the rest of the ground floor treatment, which are regularly spaced double hung or single hung windows, that the garage doors are integrated fairly well into the design of the building. They somewhat mimic the opening size of the storefront systems that are found on some of the mixed-use buildings in this district. So generally, staff finds these openings to be acceptable. The other design features of the building include appropriate materials. This is going to be a metal fish scale shingle type cladding system. This is a similar system that was approved by the board on a project on Elm Street and Over the Rhine within the past couple of years. So the applicant is proposing that same material here. And the remainder of the accent material will be a cast stone product. On the rear of the building, this will not be as visible. However, being having the open surface parking lot along Central Parkway, this will have visibility from Central Parkway. But it is not a primary facade. Staff finds that the treatments on this elevation are also appropriate. It will continue the fish scale shingle on the upper levels at the decks with a black metal and wire rail system. The cladding material on the main block of the building will be fiber cement lap siding, which is appropriate. And then here you can just see the columns that the building sits on for the support. So these columns, this is there will be drilled piers below this, so that helps to reduce the amount of excavation and fill, as well as supporting that building without the need to excavate in that area. So you can see the drilled piers here going down to the bedrock, but the actual excavation would be stepped at this point, and there would be no excavation underneath that portion. So, with that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions based on plans by Witchman Gunther Architects dated 9/25/2024. Approve the hillside review to exceed the maximum building envelope in the rear setback and rear height. Approve the hillside review for cumulative excavation and fill totaling 15.75 feet. And approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness for new infill construction at 449 West McMicken Avenue with the condition that the building permits be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. I don't have anyone signed up, but I do think we have at least an applicant here. If you'd like to come forward, identify yourself and get sworn in if you weren't already.
Tim Haynes, Haynes Real Properties, resident of 2145 Central Parkway, directly across from the development.
Mark Gunther, Wickman Gunther Architects, 22 West 7th. I don't think we really have anything to add to Urban Conservator's report, but just here to answer any questions. Cheer on more development in Mohawk.
Are there any questions for the applicants or staff?
Why does planning have to approve lot breakup?
It's a major subdivision. Planning approves all subdivisions in the city. They're either minor or major. Because this is in a hillside overlay, it's considered a major subdivision, so it'll go to the planning commission for approval.
I probably shouldn't ask this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. Are you in a rush to sell the property on Central, or do you need it for the project? Or,
This property on Central,
because you're gonna have two parcels, right? The one on,
the two parcels are these two right here on McMicken.
House on each.
oh, you don't own the property to the west?
That property is used as parking lot for my commercial building across the street on Central Parkway. So that's parking for my commercial tenants.
And it's gonna remain parking for you.
Remain parking for the commercial tenants. Yeah, it has been parking since like the 1950s.
So we'll always see the back of the design that's on there. Okay. Maybe that could be developed.
We'd probably take the park board to give up their land, and I doubt that would happen.
It's great somebody's doing something down there.
been a troubled lot since I've owned the property since 2012, so.
Questions? Do you have anyone else signed up for this issue? Okay. I don't have anyone else signed up, so I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness for 449 West McMicken Avenue as laid out by staff.
Second.
Mr. Zalasko?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We do have a couple items of other business, starting with the staff COA approvals. Oh, all right. Are there any questions or comments on the staff COA approvals? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Should I make a motion to approve the staff COA approvals for December?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Zalasko?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Mr. Sturkey reminded me that I skipped the 2025 chair and vice chair positions. So we need to circle back to that. Happy to do the chair again. Happy to pass it on if someone else wants to go for it, so.
So good at it, Adam.
You guys have done great.
We have to make a motion or anything?
So we'll need a motion regarding the chair and the vice chair, I believe.
I'll make a motion that Ms. McKenzie retain her position as chair. Mr. Young retain his position as vice chair.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Zalasko?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Myself, aye.
Chair votes aye as well, so I guess I'll do this for another year. Thanks, everyone. Now, the last item of other business is our 2025 delegation memo. I know we're sort of familiar with this from past years. Anything you would like to call our attention to on this item?
Could you go to page 2 for me? Thank you. Just hold it there for a second. Thank you.
Yeah, this is substantially the same. I'm not sure there were any changes from last year. Yeah, David's saying no, so yeah, this would be the same document that we've been operating under.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Is there like, on page 1, there's some sort of comment modification, that line there, is that just?
It looks like person was capitalized.
Oh.
I believe that was the.
Big change.
Well, that's a monumental shift here, interpretation. Okay, thank you very much. I was wondering what that was.
If you go back to the second page, I mean, there is some process in here for when a neighbor is unhappy about one of Doug's staff level approvals. The process we've been using has been, when that does happen, we essentially will just take it and put it in front of the board.
I'm sorry, could you speak up just a little bit, David?
Sure, yeah. So whenever there's been an objection, and I think we've only had 2 of them since I've been here, but whenever there's an objection to one of the staff level COA approvals, the process outlined in this memorandum is for us to essentially pull that COA approval and put it in front of the board for the board to make the determination of whether or not that was appropriate or Doug's grant of the COA was appropriate. I think have wrestled in the past with whether that should go to this board or whether it should go to the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think it's appropriate for the historic board to hear it since it's a historic case. But I just wanted to throw that out there if there was any feedback or if anyone felt differently about that, because that is one potential change that we could make to this in the future.
See, everybody's shaking their head in the affirmative.
Yeah, I think that it wasn't that long ago, obviously, that this happened, and I think there were some questions on neighbor notification and when that happens and how that happens. And I don't know if we put any thought into modifying that at all, or
We've talked about it, I think, and maybe I'll let the planning department speak on this, but I think that it would involve quite a bit of extra administrative work and cost to try to notify neighbors on all of the different minor COA applications. So did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, you approve the staff COAs at the end of every month for the previous month. So, I mean, this agenda, December was very light, but, you know, typically there are quite a few of these staff approvals. So in order to notice all of these, it would take a substantial amount of time. You know, the Historic Conservation Office is an office of one, so it's very difficult to try to, you know, make my priorities sometimes when there are different things. So I think that, you know, just from a strictly staff time standpoint, this would be difficult on my own. And it also, you know, it would be noticed after the permit is approved. So ultimately, you know, the work would still be underway when the neighbors are notified, and you know, it would ultimately end up back in the same process. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think David and Doug have summed it up well. I think it's I understand the rationale behind the request, and I think there's just a staff capacity issue with all the work that Doug's doing and one staff member.
Doug, is it also true that some of these are done same day?
What's that?
Some of the approvals are done same day when folks come in.
Right.
So if we want to try to notice people before your approval, that would cause some significant delay in the actual approval process.
Yeah, and you know, we have same day reviews that are reviewed in the same day, and then after that, we have residential permits have a 10 business day review period. So by the time we send out the notices and they are actually delivered, you know, that would be basically the 10 days. So it would likely still not be enough time the objection would likely still not be timely enough for me to not approve a permit.
I know that was the concern that, you know, if there's a way we can prevent construction from, you know, getting to a point where it becomes a big issue, but it sounds like there just may not be a solution to that. Hopefully it won't happen on a more frequent basis moving forward.
We are implementing some new software for the management of cases, and there may be something we could implement through that. I know they were talking about subscriber lists, but there may be something we could use with that could try to better inform the community of some of these projects, but that's uncertain.
I mean, I do somehow now get a notification through some sort of email network when anyone requests any sort of permit anywhere near my house. So I don't know if other people are getting that or not, but it's been interesting.
Okay.
I think it's like a next door thing. Which I think
So
I've
it's not
tried
from the
to.
city?
No. So I've tried to unsubscribe from that, but it doesn't seem to work. So I know who's getting their mechanical system replaced, just FYI. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if that'll make things better or worse, but
The rarity of the times it's been pulled, I think we're okay to kind of proceed as we are right now, and maybe revisit this in the future.
well, if there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion on the delegation memo.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Zalesko. Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Ms. McDobbin. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anything else for today?
That's all I have.
Okay, I would entertain a motion on adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everyone.